Hi everybody, Gunnar here. This is episode 0 of a series we're going to do called Climb to 30. Basically, it is set up for people who are new to League of Legends and are looking to get into ranked games and etc. Like myself. I wouldn't say I'm completely new to League of Legends or MOBAs in general. I have a lot of time under in Smite. Probably a little over a year straight. Basically, was like my only game that I was playing, and from there I did play a little bit of League. I think I got to like level 24 on my account or whatever, and that's when I kind of moved on to other things. I think at that point was Street Fighter 5 or something like that. But regardless, so I have at least an idea of how the game plays. I do know the basics of the gameplay, such as CS and item builds and positioning, what have you. So I think I can at least talk on these topics intelligently, but may not have complete command of all the mechanics yet. But anyway, so this is really set for beginners in a sense, or people who maybe have done a little bit of homework when they want to play before playing the game, and we'll kind of take it from there. So, what do you expect when you first log in the client for the very first time? Well, you have to go through the tutorial. Oh, let me scroll this up just a little bit here. You have to go through the tutorial, and that will take your account to level about 2 or 3. Actually, I think it's 2. So let's talk about leveling your account. So your account gains XP as you play games. Basically, let me show you here. So if I look at my match history, which yes, it has been bots so far, but we'll get into that in a minute. You get a certain amount of XP and IP per game. Your XP is what levels up your account. IP is what you can use to purchase certain things within the store. It's the in-game currency. And then, of course, riot points are your currency paid for by money that you can use to also pay for certain things. So anyways, let's go back to this page. So, you're going to go through the tutorial. It's going to take you about level 2, 3, somewhere around that area. Now, level 3, you could go right into PvP games, but even if you're leveling this account, I think for a just to get to level 30 to do ranked for like a Smurf or something like that, you still don't want to go into those rooms because the games can last anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour. Bot games will at least be a short amount of time, so you'll kind of level your account a little bit faster. But for our purposes, people who have never played before, or maybe have played a little bit, but kind of like want to get a fresh start on it, you're going to want to do beginner bots next. So about level 4 or 5, and then use intermediate bots. During your time in beginner bots, you really just want to get used to the movement, figure out what hotkeys you want to use, the controls, maybe a character here and there to kind of get an idea of what you like, but really it's just the very bare essentials. Once you get kind of accustomed to that, you're going to move into intermediate bots. You don't want to go beyond level 4 or 5 in beginner bots because the XP gain kind of drops significantly. And you want to have more resistance in your gameplay against intermediate bots. They may move out of your skills, certain cases, use the shields and stuff properly. There's a lot of things the bots will do that the beginner bots basically just run themselves into a wall and just sit there and, it's just super easy. You're not really going to learn too much. Not saying that intermediate bots are tough, but you'll at least get a little bit more out of it. And in the case of actually getting your leveling your account to where you need it to be, which is going to be level 10 to kind of get started really playing against other people, you really have to do that anyways, which the intermediate bots anyway. So, what are you going to do with that between that 1 to 10 travel time? What are you going to do while you're leveling all that? Well, you're going to determine what champs you like. You're going to determine which of the champs you really like to play. Do you like playing like Jinx, like marksman like Jinx? Do you like playing, kind of like fighter? I think she's a fighter assassin. Yeah, V, like fighter assassins like V. Do you like playing mages like Lux or Twisted Fate? What are you really into? What ends up being fun champions for you? And once you get that, you kind of figure out what roles they get played in quite frequently. That is going to determine what role you want to actually get into. There may be some other reasons why you might want to play one role over another, but really, I think for somebody who's just playing the game, once you find champions you really, really want to play, you want to, you're probably that's what you're going to get the most out of. So you're going to try to learn the role that you can play those champions in. Okay, so that's really what you're looking for between 1 and 10. And you want to get a little bit of a handful of that. You want to build a champion pool that you can pull from. As you can see down here in the bottom of my notes, I do have that, but we'll get into that in a minute. So once you get to level 10, you can start doing PvP normal draft. And what's the reason why we do normal draft? Two reasons. One reason is it allows us to select our roles. So we don't have to go play in blind, and we can select the roles that we really want to play. In my case, it's going to be support and mid. Those are going to be my two roles that I'm going to play. Because support's my primary, I'm more likely to get support as my role. In the case of your secondary, it's like if you can't find any supports or anything like that, well, we'll put you in mid, okay? And for some of you, you're like, oh, what the hell is a role? Well, there's 5 of them. There's top, there's jungle, there's mid, there's support, and then there's bottom. Okay. And we'll get to that in a second. And the other reason you want to do that, besides being able to select which roles you want to play to make sure that you can play your characters that you want to play, is that that when you go into ranked games, that is the system that's used for ranking for ranked games. So we're kind of ready for it, the draft pick style. So roles. What are the different roles? So we just touched on that. Let's start with top. Actually, we start with mid. Mid's probably the kind of the very normal role. So mid is the mid lane. So you go down the middle lane. You're going to be playing mostly mages here, though some assassins also work. And really, what you want to do is just normal laning here. And normal laning is, last hitting, trading, pretty much stuff like that. And you can look up some more of that stuff, how to play your role once you kind of set that up. That's kind of beyond what we want to talk about here today. But that's mid lane. So you lane in the mid lane. It's always solo. It's by yourself. Things you need to look out for is your positioning. You don't want to be too close to their tower because you're susceptible to ganking. Ganking is when another person up from the team, usually the jungler, pretty much sets up a 2v1 versus you, catches you out of position, and most likely kills you. That is a gank. Or at least a version of a gank. So that's mid lane. Top lane is very similar to mid lane, except it's on the top lane. Top lane tends to be fighters, or kind of a little bit more brawlery type champions. Again, you can have others here. You can have mages and assassins, but that's the typical play. Top lane plays very much like mid lane. You gotta do your last inning. You gotta do proper trades. There's a little bit more distance between the towers because of the way it's set up, because it's kind of around the corner. But you're usually left alone because you're kind of away from the opening objectives like dragon. There's not really objectives really nearby you that's going to get picked up except for the occasional Rift Herald, which again, just kind of going into that's a little bit beyond what we want to talk about today. But that's top. Bottom lane is usually a dual lane. It's a dual lane between the ADC, which tends tech damage carry, which tends to be your marksman. In fact, it's almost 100% exclusively marksman. Basically, those are characters that their auto attacks do a lot of damage. Their abilities can also do a lot of damage too, but really, for the most part, their damage is really based on their auto attacking. And then they're also combined with the supports. Supports usually play with ADCs because ADCs are very item dependent, which means they're very weak early on. So you want to have a support there to be able to help your ADC kind of get into the mid game and start building their items. The other thing it's helpful for is the support will ward, will create vision on the field for people. Everybody does want to ward at some point usually with their pink wards or their trinkets, because warding is somewhat limited. You can only have 3 wards down, stealth wards per person, plus 1 pink ward per person. So the support can't really get enough vision along the map with that limitation. Can usually help get good vision for where it's needed most to start, but if you want more vision than that, you really got to be responsible for your own. Anyway, so that's the support. And then lastly, you have the jungler. The jungler kind of roams in the in-between spaces between the lanes, taking out jungle camps, securing the buffs. That there's a red and blue buff on each side. They will also set up, be the ones that will be setting up ganks in different lanes. Mid lane, bottom lane is probably more popular during the game. Top lane does get ganked every once in a while if the top laner gets out of position, but usually it's more towards the mid and bottom lane. One thing to note as you're going through level 1 through 10 is you're probably not going to see a lot of junglers, and that's for 2 reasons. The first one being is in bot games they don't run a jungler. The bots don't run a jungler person, so they tend to send 2 to the top. So there's 2 in the top, 2 in the bottom, 1 in mid. So the issue there is you end up, if you have just 1 person on top and you have somebody in your team trying to jungle, you set up a 2v1 versus your top for a while, and it could cause some issues for your top laner. You're probably not going to lose, and you're usually not going to lose the bots for any particular reason, but just be aware of that. The other reason is that as you level up your count from 1 to 10, you start getting more and more summoner spells. You don't have access to all your summoner spells right off the get-go. You have access, I believe, to Clarity, Ghost, and Heal to start. Marcus for ARAM, which we're not getting into. The rest of these become available at 4, 6, Flash at 8. Flash is a pretty important spell. It's almost always one of your summoner abilities. It's just which ones you want to use past that. Usually like Ignite, Exhaust, Heal, or Ghost, with the occasion for the Cleanse. However, the thing that matters most for junglers is Smite. Smite is used to help secure jungle camps and some of the bigger objective monsters. Also, it works with the jungle items, the jungler-specific items. You can't even grab them unless you have Smite, and they also alter Smite when you pick them up. So, because you can't even get this ability to level 10, is another reason why you don't see junglers until level 10. So, if you're interested in the jungling role, chances are you're going to kind of just play around with some of maybe the jungle characters, maybe not doing jungling in and of itself, maybe just playing around their abilities or something like that. But you actually may try to do some jungling once you get to level 10. I would suggest, again, using the intermediate bots to kind of learn jungle roots, get an idea of how jungling is going to start for you and how you're going to get through like the first... your first path and how you might set up ganks, and just to get the basis down of jungling before you get into normal PvP games. I would suggest probably going around level 12 before you do that. You can do it sooner if you feel more comfortable sooner than that, but I'm going to suggest do 2 levels of that. I mean, everybody else gets 10 levels to kind of figure out their characters and their roles, to get themselves started. You have much less time because you just don't have access to Smite, and that's such a huge part of what you need in order to jungle. So having said all that, now we're into PvP normal draft from level 10 onwards. Done with bot games unless you pick up a new champion and you want to learn a new champion. Otherwise, you're going to be playing normal draft. So what do you want to do basically for the first 10 levels while you're in normal draft, like 10 to 20, is you want to learn your role. You want to understand the basis of your role. If you're a laner, basically top, mid, or bottom, you want to get last inning and trading and positioning and when you need the back, what items you need the back for, how things may go in your lane as things go on. There's a multitude of different things you need for those roles, but they're going to play fairly similarly. It's going to be a little bit different depending on which lane you're in, but their fundamentals are going to be the same. these are the lanes I definitely would suggest for most people to start with. They're also the lanes that are probably the most popular. For jungling, you gotta learn your jungle paths. You gotta understand which jungle item is gonna work the best for the particular champion you use. Gotta understand whether you're good at early ganks or whether you need to pick up items first, or whether you have to wait till you get to your ultimate before you can effectively gank. You know, you're gonna have to learn those things for those particular characters. You're probably not going to get too much into evading and counter jungling yet at this particular point. You're just going to try to learn the basis. You just want to kind of play very normally. But jungler has a lot going on and a lot of adaptation. So just be aware that if this is your first foray in the league and you want to jungle, it's going to be a lot of hard work. And it isn't all about ganking. There's a lot that goes into jungling. So keep that in mind. Lastly, support. This is where I sit in. Support tends to be the least played role because a lot of people are like, oh, you don't get to get kills, you don't do CS, you don't do anything. Well, there's a lot that support needs to do, and if you don't support your team very well, really the back of the game can really rely on how well you do support your team. I mean, honestly, yes, people carry the game, they get the kills, they get... they push your towers and stuff like that, but they need to help the support usually to get that started and to set up those opportunities for them to shine. So support tends to be a no love position for some people, but there are aggressive supports out there besides just normal like tanky supports or utility supports. There are aggressive supports that you might also be able to get kills with after kind of getting your ADC stepped up. You also have to think about things like warding a little bit more, like where's good wards, when's a good time to roam, when you feel your ADC is safe so you can go help mid lane out and get that tower pushed down. There's a lot more thought that goes into support. I would say some support kind of sits between a jungler and the laners, and I almost call support a second jungler in a sense, not for the ganking side of it, but for how they're going to team up and maybe even set up ganks themselves, set up 2v1 scenarios, 3v2 scenarios, or how they're going to enable your team to kind of move forward. So, and I wrote down some things here, learning your role. For me, from a support, good warding spots, which support items I should be using, like whether I should be using Frostqueen's Claim, either Watchers, or, which sight stones should I be getting, what other items should I be getting to support, something like, it's called Trinket, the Locket, should we get Locket, should we get Crucible, should we be getting Banner of Command, should we get, what kind of support items are going to really help out. And also when to initiate, if you have initiate tools like Sonya's a great initiate tool. A lot of your tankier supports have a lot of initiation, like Leona has her Zenith Blade to hit a target, pull in, and then you can stun them with your Q to kind of set up a kill for the rest of your team by putting that person in place and making them have to either deal with you or basically die or try to get away. Again, the 10 to 20 is really going out, go look up your role, look up ideas for your role, how your role works, what are good things to learn. Try to keep the pared down. Don't try to learn every single thing for your role as humanly possible. Just get an idea of the base fundamentals. I will probably do something on support when I have a much clearer understanding what makes a good support, what makes a bad support. I mean, I've done my own research, but I'd also like to kind of do it from my perspective as well, especially since I feel like support is a role that's underguided, underappreciated, and there's not as much information out there for supports or people who are interested in supporting. I will be using mid as a kind of secondary role for myself. The reason is there's some characters that I have in my support pool to start up that I can also use mid. So I have in my support pool, so these are the characters that I determined that I like playing to those first 10 levels and like to continue to play. I actually went to level 11 because I've been, there's some other characters I wanted to check out before I kind of finalized my decision. But so my supports are Zonya, Zyra, Vel'Koz, Morgana, and Leona. So Sona and Leona are kind of your real basic supports in the sense of Sonya's more of a utility mage. She has some really good damage as far as her pokes are concerned, but in mid to late game, she has auras which can help your team out quite a bit, and can continue to kind of switch to the proper aura whenever your team needs it. So it's a very engaging support. Leona is kind of like is a tanky support. Has the Zenith Blade, can basically pour into and engage with enemies, and actually has some burst potentials. Has some good base damage on her that she can actually help burst a target down. Zyra, Vel'Koz, and Morgana play a little bit more aggressive because they're mages, and they're more aggressive mages. Vel'Koz and Zyra don't have a ton of CC ability. They do have some. But really, it's their ability, in Zyra's case, like really to poke very hard. Vel'Koz can also poke a bit with his Q, and can lay down a lot of damage. Zyra also has some really good CC on her ultimate. Her plants also provide a lot of problems for a lot of people. So these are the more aggressive ones. Morgana has a really, really hefty stun, and also has Black Shield, which is an ability which actually can eliminate some spells, where if you put it on somebody, it can actually stop CC from occurring. It's a very, very powerful spell. A very powerful defensive spell, but on a damaging mage. So these are the supports I'm going to start with. Some other supports I'll get into, but these, you don't want to make your champ pool very huge, and that's kind of what I want to get into, because you want to really kind of specialize in like a handful. This may be even too much, and I might actually pare this down to like 3 or 4 characters that I really want to play. I'd like to be able to have a utility, at least a tank character, a utility mage character, a more aggressive mage character for my supports. So if anything, Vel'Koz, Morgana, and Zyra, I'll probably pare those down to one of them, and maybe just keep a pocket one just in case like all my options are taken away. So anyways, it's good to have that kind of plan in place before you start doing normal drafts, so you know what you want to play. And again, just keep it pared down. If your secondary roles don't overlap very well, you might find if you get stuck in your secondary role, you might not do very well. Just kind of keep things in perspective. So if you're one of the laning types, you might want to choose one of the other lanes to play. Just because you have an idea about laning and what you need to do during the lane phase, even if you don't have as much familiarity with the character. If you're support, you're probably not going to ever have to worry about secondary, to be honest. But for me, I chose mid because, again, the overlap. You might also want to choose bot lane just because you're going to be starting in the bottom lane, whether you're support or bot. So you have a better understanding of how the laning phase goes in bot, so that might work out a little bit better for you, just so you're always in bottom lane, whether you're support or bot. If you're a jungle main, really choose whatever you like at that point. You might find very little, but some similar characters you can maybe use in top. You might think support might work out well because of the roaming aspect of support. Even though you don't get to roam around as a jungle, you may find other opportunities as a support to do that. Just keep in mind what are the 2 things you like, and also keep in mind that really for the secondary one, don't worry too much about it. Really, just trying to focus on our primary role. But just be at the ready for your secondary is all. You don't have to be like a super champ at these. So that's what we're going to do from 10 to 20. From 20 on, we may, and I didn't write here because I might change my mind once we get to 20 what we need to work on. But you're going to work on some more intermediate concepts for your role, maybe some more intermediate concepts for your particular character specifically. You may want to look to increase your pool now that you've been playing your kind of core group of characters for 10 levels, which maybe like 30 to 50 games, maybe more than that. So we'll talk about that more once we get to level 20, kind of what our next steps are and the next things we want to learn. I think that's pretty much it. Other things to consider when you get your characters kind of set up is setting up your masteries, your runes, and your item sets. To go through these very, very quickly, obviously there's a lot of information thrown at you here, and if you want to learn about any one of these very specific things, there are places you can do that. But runes, actually let's not start with runes. Masteries, every time you level up your account, you get a point. You will put a point in these passive abilities. They do different things. You have to kind of, in order to get this rank of stuff, you need to put points, max amount of points in one of the skills over here. And work your way down. The important part of your masteries are these keystones, which are these bottom. It takes 18 points to get to them, and they usually have they're a very powerful passive. No matter what you're doing here, and you may just take stuff that's kind of good for your character at this low level, which in most cases is going to be damage or tankiness if you need tankiness. If there is a keystone and it's not where you have points currently and not in a tree you want to have points, you want to reset all your points, which you can do for free. It doesn't cost anything. And go down to the tree and make sure you get your keystone that you're looking for at level 18. It is that powerful that you always want to have a keystone from level 18 on. Always is a strong word. There's probably not 100% certainty that you're going to want to do it, but for the 9 times out of 10, let's say that you're probably going to want your keystone once you get to level 18. So, as far as masteries for whichever champion you want to use, a lot of guys out there on champions, go take a look at it, get an idea of which items you want to build, how you want to rank your skills, what masteries you want to take. Don't get too bogged down on what you're taking right now. Those are the things we'll learn as we kind of get to level 30 about our characters, why we're choosing the masteries we're chosen, why we're choosing the items we're choosing, and maybe even some situational items that we want to take instead of our core items, and what runes to use. Now let's kind of move into runes. Runes give flat bonuses, or maybe per level bonuses, depending on what kind of rune we're talking about. But to give you statistics to your character right at level 1. So they can be very powerful in the early game if you have them and your opponent does not, which is why you should always have them. It used to be prior to level 20 you didn't want to get them because they cost IP. And let me kind of go into that. We actually had it open earlier. I don't know how recently. I don't remember this being a thing when I played last, which was not even a year ago. Well, getting close to a year ago. It's probably like 9 months ago. So there are really only 2 levels. It's called Tier 3, Tier 4. Tier 2, Tier 3, because it used to be 3 tiers of these: 1 through 10, 10 through 20, 20 through 30. They've cut that down to just ones you can use at level 1. And ones that you can use at level 20 and up. The ones that are lower than level 20 cost only 1 IP. So it's perfectly fine to pick up your runes and masteries and stuff your runes for pre-20 play now. There's no reason not to. It does give you flat bonuses. It will make you hit harder. It will give you more armor. It will give you more health to start with. Give you a little easier time at the beginning of the game. Get it. There's no reason not to. I think it'll take you 1 game to get all the things you need for your characters. I didn't actually mean to come out of here. So the tier 3s, these are the ones that come into play at level 20. You can see their cost. They can cost quite a bunch of IP, 2,000 plus. My IP is a little bit lower than it probably should be at this point. I think I had probably like 4,000, 5,000 that I've gained at this particular juncture. I did purchase a couple characters through IP. just to save a little money. But once you kind of get your core group down, try to save your IP for when you hit level 20, because you're going to want to start buying these runes to get your rune page filled out because you really want to have it complete before going into ranked games. In fact, I would say that's a requirement to go into the ranked games. It's going to be besides level 30. You open up more runes as rune spots as you level up. You have marks here, you have seals here, you have glyphs here, and you have quintessence. They come up in 3 different places. Quintessence usually provide the biggest bonuses. These just provide different bonuses depending on what type it is. Again, these are one of the things you just want to look up for your particular character. The big problem here is that you only have 2 pages. Unlike Masteries, you can get a bunch of pages for no problem. You have to pay for extra rune pages. Again, that's stuff you have to purchase in the store. I actually think the extra rune pages are more centric around RP instead of IP. A lot of players, usually when they play a particular role, don't need to really switch out too much between characters, their runes. But if they do, you can bring it up in the character selection screen, or during the draft screen, I should say. And be able to switch it there, so you probably don't need to get extra rune pages, but if you do, just understand there's some costs. The last thing you want to do for your characters is to set up your item sets. Again, just kind of go with what's available for your particular character, what your character is going to want and need. This page is set up for Zyra. It's basically set up mostly for support, but I also have start items there that I want for if I was playing mid with her as well, and also situational items I may want to get into. And you might switch this up differently depending on which character it is. I'm still kind of working with the format that makes the most sense for me, but just play around with it. But this makes it a lot easier to find the items that you want to have during a match instead of roaming around through the entire store. Saves time, get you out in lane faster. Definitely take advantage of this. And those are things you just want to keep track of as you're leveling up and making the appropriate adjustments as you hit certain levels. Really the big adjustment here for Masteries is level 18. Really the big adjustments here for runes is level 20. Start switching in your greater runes for them. And for your item sets, just kind of keep them up to date. When you find items that work better for you or items that you want to try out, make sure you put them in. Take other ones out that you don't need anymore or haven't gone into, et cetera, et cetera. Change up when you're using different champions, and so on and so forth. So, I think we covered as much as we want to cover today. It's been 30 minutes of me just kind of chatting a little bit here, but just a quick summary. So, as we're going to level from 1 to 30, you start with your tutorial, you go to beginner bots, you go to intermediate bots until about level 10. That's your journey from 1 to 10. I didn't show it here, mostly because playing bot games, I'm sure you don't want to see that. That's not really interesting, so it kind of saves you the time there. So I hope that me being at level 11 doesn't kind of put you off of like, oh, I want to see what 1 through 10 is. Trust me, once you see one game of bots, they're all the same way. What's important for those first 10 levels is figuring out the champs you want to play, which ultimately figures out what roles you want to play. That's what we're looking for. Now, from 10 on, I will show my games as we go through that. What we're going to learn, we're going to pay attention to characters that are in our pool that we're going to play and get a little deeper understanding of how they play during the game, what items to use, etc., etc., etc. And then once we make it to 30, we've gone through this journey. We may need to play some extra games to get very specific things, mostly runes, or just to make sure everything's on point before we start doing our placement games for our ratings. And we'll say that's the end of this particular series. So I hope you guys will join me on this journey, and I hope that this will help learn or teach you how to approach that 1 to 30 grind. And don't look at it as a grind, look at it as an opportunity to learn everything you need to learn before going into ranks. So when you go into ranked, you can actually start stomping people right from the get-go. So I'll see you guys next time for our first match. I don't know what character we'll play. I guess the format will be, I will start this during the draft phase, and we'll talk about what's happening with picks and bans and everything, to get an idea. Maybe I don't even have an idea. I can learn along with you guys, and then we'll kind of go from there. We'll probably get it ruined because I'll probably post on the video what champion I'm playing, but we'll go through all that. Okay. I think that's enough. See you guys later. Thanks for joining me.